I'm gonna go ahead and get the live stream on Instagram rolling.
Cool.
If you want to get ready to join the live on Instagram, I'll get that
Yeah.
rolling. All right. There we go. I got the IG live. What's up? Welcome to the X Factor with Xavier Scruggs right here on Prospect Dugout. Everybody that's watching on IG live, we got, let's see, Facebook live is going, YouTube live, Twitch, we got Periscope. Man, we are going. Look. We got Xavier Scruggs trying to join this live right here. Oh man, dude,
Yeah, get me in there. Get me
are
in there.
you there we go, connecting. Yeah. All right, I just got to turn my volume down. Beautiful. So, dude,
Cool.
you excited about this Swish baseball experience we got coming up?
Oh man, this sounds amazing, man. I'm jealous of these players getting to be a part of it, man. This is an exciting time for them, and it's going to be awesome for them to get to be able to participate in something like this.
Have you talked to Swish lately?
I talked to him yesterday, just super fired up. You know how he is,
Yeah.
just so much energy, so passionate about it. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that that passion is going to be really in that experience with those players, and they get to showcase a lot of their skills in front
Yeah.
of in front of big leaguers as well. So that's cool.
Yo, so I don't know if he told you, but he confirmed Tino Martinez is coming. Gary Sheffield
Oh
is
wow.
coming. Yeah, buddy. Yours truly, Xavier Scruggs, is going to be there, man. It's going to be sick, man. It's going to be legit. I mean, we're just like every day we're getting on the phone, just super excited about it. Just can't wait to just interact with the guys, man, and give them this experience. That's really what it is, man. It's an experience. It's an opportunity to learn. Like that's what we're doing here. We're getting on these live streams and we're talking. And today we're going to talk about pressure and we're going to talk about success. I mean, that's going to be
Mm,
two good topics. I can't wait to hear your
yeah.
thoughts on that. I'm just getting everything going with Facebook and YouTube. We look like we're ready to roll. So welcome everybody that's watching on Facebook. Welcome everybody that is watching on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram Live. I'm here with my
Oh,
boy.
we're on Twitch too.
Yeah, bro. All those gamers got to be ready. Got to be ready. I'm here
Love
with
it.
my
Love
boy
it.
Xavier Scruggs. 3 seasons in Major League Baseball. Currently a free agent. Dude was working out this morning, staying in shape. Man, I can see those guns when you're working out. That bat hitting that ball, man, sounds loud.
Oh
Sounds
man,
loud,
gotta
baby.
gotta stay ready. Gotta stay ready. That's the biggest thing is just keeping the body ready. Is getting those swings in. To
I mean, like, so you haven't been in, excuse me, you haven't been in a team atmosphere um, for a little bit. So, like, how are you staying mentally prepared to go into? I mean, it's weird. Like this has never happened before, where you're amped up and ready to go play, and then all of a sudden, wait, we can't play. Like, even if you wanted to, even if you're ready, you can't. So,
yeah,
what's that like for you?
I mean it's tough. It's weird, but at the same time, it's given me like an opportunity to kind of relax and chill with the family, get a lot more family time. So that's been big
That's
for
true.
me. Um, and as an athlete, you're always going to be ready for the competition.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough though when you know you're supposed to be in the middle of a season. Your body
Mm-hmm.
knows, your mind knows. So that part of it is definitely tough, but you can't really control that. So you just have to stay focused on keeping yourself ready, keeping yourself motivated, keeping
Mm-hmm.
yourself in the best shape possible. Make sure you're eating right, make sure you're sleeping right, getting the right liquids. So all those things kind of go into it, especially as an athlete, because when it comes down to it, when it's time to actually play, there's no excuses. Like you got to still be ready, and it
Mm-hmm.
goes along with every sport because every sport is dealing with that right now.
That's it, man. So like like you're going to cage every day, obviously, but like what is your break that down before we get started? Let me just tell everybody what we're doing. This is the X Factor with Xavier Scruggs, and we dive into the mental concepts of the game of baseball. Today we're talking about success and pressure, and we're going to get into that in a second. But Xavier is a free agent. He's a professional baseball player, free agent. Spent 3 seasons in Major League Baseball, 3 seasons in Major League Baseball with the Marlins and the Cardinals. He's also played in Korea. He's played in other professional leagues. He's still looking for a place to play, ready to go. Uh, he's staying in shape. So we're kind of just picking his brain just for a minute about what, what you're kind of doing when you're at the facility working out.
Yeah. So for me, it starts real early, either 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock.
Why do
I'm
you start so
working
early?
because for me, it's like if I get it going early in the morning, it kind of gets those endorphins going, gets me kind of ready for the rest of the day. And then also I can knock a bunch of stuff out early and then still
Mm-hmm.
have the rest of the day to like relax, hang out with the fam, recover. So for me, it's like get it going early. For me, speed work early in the morning with my guy, Yo Murphy out here in Tampa. Um, just working on a lot of the mechanics, working on a lot of the movements, making sure that, as an athlete, especially baseball player, you got to stay 162 games, you got to stay healthy. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's important to really not so much strength and so much power now, but more of like making sure the movements are correct, making sure the mechanics of the running is correct. So a lot of those things. And then it moves on to a lift after that, making sure you're getting your lift in. For some guys, they like to hit before they lift. For me, I
Mm-hmm.
like to lift before I hit. That way, when I'm done lifting, I can just focus on hitting, focus
Mm.
on everything that has to do with baseball. I don't have to think about while I'm throwing or while I'm fielding or while I'm hitting, thinking about, oh, I still got to lift after this. No,
Yeah.
when I'm done with that, I can just focus on the baseball aspect. And really dive in and give that all my attention. So for me,
Yeah.
get the weights and conditioning in, then you gotta hit the field, get all your field work in. And for me, I'm typically done around 2, 3 o'clock, and then I'm able to do some of these things like have this live with you and prospect dugout and be able to share some of my knowledge and give back to these younger players because it's the good thing is it's not just coming from me, it's coming from everybody else that I've learned from.
Yeah.
You already know I have a podcast that we've had 25 to 30 high level elite athletes and people in the industry with extraordinary athletes. So I learn from everybody else and I just give that back to, the athletes.
For sure, man. So today we're here with Xavier Scruggs. We're on the X Factor with Xavier Scruggs. And the reason why it's called the X Factor is because Xavier, his mission right now, he's still playing professional baseball. He's a free agent, but he's still an active player. But his goal is he wants to give back. He wants to impact the lives of amateur baseball players, of other professional baseball players, of college baseball players, of parents, of anybody that is in the game or anybody that just loves the game of baseball and wants to be better in life in general. And so today we're talking about success and pressure, but it's called the X Factor because your company is called Extraordinary Athletes, right? And so your focus is how do we go from being good to extraordinary? What are the things? What are the keys? What are the things that we need to hit on the mental side and on the
Yeah.
routine side? Like our first episode that we had, we talked about routine. We talked about setting a schedule, setting getting a journal and writing things down and giving yourself something to hold yourself accountable. We talked about accountability too. So we've touched on
Mm-hmm.
a lot of topics, and all of these videos are available on our Facebook page. On our YouTube page, facebook.com/prospect dugout, youtube.com/prospect dugout. They're there. They're available for you to watch. And I suggest that you go and take a look, sit down, and they're not long. I mean, the longest one we had is an hour, but it's good conversation. It's good stories. It's really good. So today we're going to talk about pressure and success. So I want to ask you just right off the bat, what do you define as pressure? What when someone
Yeah.
says, "Oh, I feel so much pressure in this situation," what are you thinking when they say pressure?
Yeah. For me, when somebody's saying pressure, um, it's all has to do with mental. It's all put upon yourself by your own brain, by your own emotions, your own feelings. So what I want people to understand is like pressure isn't necessarily something that takes away from your skill set. Like
Mm-hmm.
you'll never lose the skill set that you had in that moment just because
Mm-hmm.
of pressure. But what it can do is block you from remembering the things that you do well and block you from actually performing to your utmost ability. So pressure is something that is all mental. We put it upon ourselves, and a lot of times, especially this day and age, like the parents put it upon the kids as well. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so for example, we always hear about that little league parent that's yelling like, "Hey, Johnny, you could do it. Go get a hit," whatever it may be. So Johnny's like locked in on just getting a hit,
Yeah.
and he's like worried about if he doesn't. So like it's always the pressure comes from not accomplishing the outcome that you want. You know, so that's the biggest thing that hurts a lot of athletes is like when we think about pressure, we're thinking about the outcome that we don't want. Um, and I don't want to dive too deep into the question already because you just asked me what I think about that. But like pressure, somebody ultimately told me, I think I was in AAA, and yeah, I think it was a mental skills coach that kind of said, use pressure as an opportunity to remember that you can use it in a positive way. It doesn't always have to be negative. And it kind of got me thinking, like, how do I do that? And he said, like, pressure, you think of it as energy. You can use it as a negative energy, or you can think of it as a positive energy. Like you can use, so like for me, it kind of switched my mindset into thinking like that energy can be turned into, okay, instead of me being so worried and so anxious, maybe I calm down, relax, and I use that bumping of my heart and use that to just drive a pitch and go through a ball that like I've never done it before. So a lot of times we think of pressure as being so negative, but let's turn it around our mindset and think, okay, pressure usually means I'm in a position where I've wanted to be in. A lot of times we play in the backyard. Oh, bases loaded, 2 outs. Count is 3-2. Like we practice being in those positions all the time, just when we're fooling around. But we have to remember, like, we want to be in those situations. Like pressure is inevitable. It's going to happen. You're going to feel it, but just remember that you can use it to your own ability. Like you've asked to be in this position in the past. So I think that that's really important, is like remembering that pressure it's inevitable. It's mental. It's going to happen. But use it to your advantage. Remember that that's a good thing. If you're feeling some pressure, that means you care.
For sure.
Those are the things. I know you asked me to think about like what I think off the top of my head.
No, that's good.
Like,
that's good.
But those are the things like that I really had to learn too. It's like pressure is always going to be there, and you have to kind of learn how to navigate it.
Yeah. And for me, I think that, you know, if you're in a situation where there's pressure, you know, you want to be in that position. Like if you're going through the motions and you're doing stuff, everything's going to be easy breezy. Nothing's going to be going on in your life. I feel like, you know, being in a pressure situation, you've actually put things in motion that are taking you to that place. So in terms of pressure, you know, we just touched on it for a minute. And if you guys are watching and you like what we're talking about and you've got a question, or if you want to hear something about pressure or success, ask the question in the comments. If you're watching on Instagram Live, drop a comment right there. Facebook, YouTube, drop those comments so we can see. But in terms of, you know, you said it's a mental thing that we're putting on ourselves. And I agree with you. I think that, like I heard, you know, A-Rod talking about this. He was talking about like getting butterflies in his stomach when he's having an at bat. And he's like, dude, if I'm not getting butterflies, then I'm not having fun doing it. Like I'm not into it. The butterflies are good. So, but he also said that, you know, taking that the butterfly feeling where you kind of feel nervous, I guess that could be interpreted as pressure, a little bit of pressure, but like taking that energy, it's the same energy, fear, excitement, it's all the same energy. It's just how you mentally interpret it, how you act it out. So how do you think preparation plays into how do you think preparation plays a factor when it comes to being in a pressure situation?
Yeah, I think you touch on something that's really important. Preparation that's going to take off a lot of that bad energy when we get into a situation where a lot of times we're expected to feel pressure. The reason being is because you prepared yourself for that situation. You're confident in that situation. You disciplined yourself enough. You have the self-discipline. You have the motivation throughout your preparation. You use motivation to prepare for every little part or every little situation that you expect to happen in the game. And we're not just talking about physical preparation. We're talking about mental as well. You in the dugout, you know, it's going to be a situation. You may be in the hole, maybe three batters down. You see it happening like as it's going on during the game. You know, there's an opportunity for you to come up with the situation with bases loaded. You know, there's a situation where, you know, this guy's pitching really well. You might get an account 0-2 and you have to battle back. So for me, it's like preparation is like expecting certain things to happen. They may not all of those things happen, but if you're prepared for as many of them as possible, expecting as a pitcher, you're going to get in a jam at some point and their best hitter is going to be up.
Yeah.
So just preparing yourself for those things mentally is huge because it's going to give you the confidence, and confidence is something that we can talk about for a long time too. But confidence helps you be prepared for those pressure situations as well. And just continue to remember that it's okay that it happens. Like pressure is okay when it happens. It happens to the best of them. Just like you said, Alex Rodriguez, like we're talking about somebody like that feels pressure, one of the best to play in the game. So, anybody maybe not up to par with him is going to feel the same.
Mm-hmm. Do you think pressure is real? Do you think think about it? Like if it's based solely on an outside interpretation or an outside viewpoint, like you said earlier, when you were talking about your definition of pressure, when you're talking about a parent saying, come on, do this, do that. Do you think that it's more so based on our viewpoint of what others think about us? Do you think that really plays a part into it?
Yeah, I think it does, but also I think it can, come from our own viewpoint as well. We'll talk about success later on, but like standards, sometimes we hold ourselves to certain standards and we put the pressure upon ourselves. So the reason why I think it is actually real is because nobody's probably been through a situation where they haven't felt some type of pressure, some type of anxiety, and I feel like the more that we understand that it actually is going to be there sometimes, the better we're off when we have to actually navigate it. Like if we don't expect it to be there, then we're going to be slammed. And all of a sudden when we're in a situation and it actually comes, then we're not as prepared for it. So then for me, I just feel like as an athlete, you're always going to have some type of feeling within you to want to do well. And sometimes that ends up being like, okay, I want to live up to these standards. I know I'm good enough. Sometimes that applies a little pressure. So I think that it is real. I wish that it wasn't, but I do think that it is real, even though a lot of it comes from our own mental, expectations.
Yeah. And so you mentioned the physical side, but you said that it's mostly on the mental side. And so I think that one thing for us to kind of hit on, we're here with Xavier Scruggs on the X Factor right here on Prospect Dugout, on the Prospect Dugout Network. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch. If you guys have any questions, if you like what we're talking about, drop something in the comments so we can talk with you. But you talked about, you hit on the physical side and the mental side. So I'm going to give you just a little example. You were talking about preparation. This isn't necessarily pressure, but I think that this kind of can parlay into the next question that I want to ask is, I had a CrossFit workout the other day that typically I could do it just fine, but I wasn't mentally ready for it. I was not. I got up late. I got to the class. I had a phone call. I got into the class a couple minutes late, and I just wasn't ready, and I didn't feel like I performed at my best. Right. So I wasn't locked in, and I think that what I asked previously about pressure being real. Yeah, I do believe it's real, but I think that pressure is always there, no matter what circumstance you're in. But I think that the more important your task is, the more people that are relying on you, not necessarily in a baseball sense, but maybe in a management sense or in a job sense where you're in charge of so many things. It's easy to be a Monday morning quarterback. It's easy to go back and look at the film and say, oh, he should have done that. Or it's easy for you to watch on TV. Oh man, I would have done that. But you're not in the situation. Right. Yeah. So it's almost as if like the pressure that you're feeling, you can take that, use your mental preparation and say, okay, I'm in this situation because I want to be here. I'm asking for this responsibility, right? It's almost as if the pressure, you could interpret that in your mind that it's not pressure. It's almost my responsibility. And this is what I've trained for. This is what, you mentioned earlier in the backyard, you're dreaming of, Game 7 of the World Series, bottom of the ninth inning, down by 3, bases loaded, 3-2, 2 outs, you're up to the plate, right? There's pressure there, but I feel like if you're preparing yourself and you want to get to that point, you can take that situation and say, okay, I've done all this to get to this level. I want this. This is why I'm here. And so the pressure, that's what we talked about with the example with A-Rod, is turning that situation into a positive, turning that energy into a positive. So it's almost as if you can take the pressure situation and then go back and say, you know what, I've been preparing for this mentally. So touch a little bit more on the difference between the mental side and the physical side. How far, because in my opinion, you're going to get so far in professional baseball. Let's use professional baseball. You're going to get so far in professional baseball based on skill alone, right? You get to a certain point and it's almost like, okay, the kid is not going any higher, not because he can't hit the ball out of the park, not because he can't throw 96, but because he can't handle those situations. The difference between a guy that's in AAA and the big leagues is because the guy in AAA misses the fastball mistake and the guy in the big leagues hits the ball out of the park, right? So how far do you think you should rely on the physical side before you really start to focus on that mental side?
Yeah. I think you got to do as much as you can on the physical side first and foremost. Like you said, we talked about preparation. You got to be prepared physically.
Mm-hmm.
And then mentally, I think it's like, you see these guys like Mookie Betts, you see these guys like Christian Yelich, like these guys just look like they're playing backyard baseball. Like that stuff looks so easy for them because they're able to slow the game down mentally and really be prepared. Understand that, like you said, the responsibilities, they wanted these responsibilities. They wanted to almost carry the team sometimes. And that doesn't affect them as much as somebody else because they're happy about it. They really want that. And the top athletes, they strive off of that. They really feed off of that. So I think it's important, like, if you can tell, like a lot of the best athletes, they'll get in some of those situations where we think there's a lot of pressure. They just breathe, man. They sit back, they take a breath, and they remember why they're in that situation. I just wrote down kind of the same thing that you said. Remind yourself why you wanted this for so long. Remind yourself why you've even started this path. It's because you wanted to be in that situation. And in order for you to keep going, you're going to have to be able to really perform in pressure situations all the time. And that doesn't even just have to do with baseball, but that's life in general, right? If you're able to perform in situations where a lot of people feel pressure, that separates you. Especially as a young athlete looking to maybe go to college, looking to be a professional, you're always trying to find a way to separate yourself. So if you turn your mindset into thinking, okay, this is an opportunity for me to separate myself and really show coaches like, hey, this kid can make it to the next level. Pressure's not a problem. He strives off of it. I think that's huge. So that mental preparation part of it is so important because you want to be able to put yourself in the shoes of the moment before it even happens. And I think that's what the top athletes do so well. Think about the Michael Jordan piece, The Last Dance. So many kids probably saw that. Almost everybody saw that. Let's be honest.
I didn't see it.
Okay, well, you're doing yourself a disservice. No, but if you think about it, like he was able to talk about like mentally what he expected from himself. It wasn't always necessarily physical, but like mentally, he knew if he was out there on the court, how much better it was for the team. So it's so important for yourself mentally to take that next step, to expect so much more of yourself, because the higher you climb up, the more is going to be expected, the more responsibility is thrown on you. And, the best athletes, they take it on.
That's it. So we're here on the Prospect Dugout Network. We're live on Instagram. We're live on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and Twitch. We're with Xavier Scruggs. This is called the X Factor with Xavier Scruggs. We're going from the good to extraordinary. And today we're talking about pressure and success. And we've
wait, Joel, I want to say one more thing too. Just for the parents too, to understand that, like, the reason why, think about like what you have your son or daughter doing. Like you have them doing so many lessons, having different instructors, different performance based programs, whether that be strength and conditioning, speed conditioning. Like you're asking a lot of them, and they're asking a lot of themselves, you know, to be able to do those things. So don't add extra pressure on them when they're already doing so much. Like let them be free and let them do what they do.
That's awesome. So we're talking about pressure and success. We've really dived in. We haven't touched on success yet. We've got, we go about an hour on the show. So we're about 20, 25 minutes in. We're still talking about pressure. And so we've spent some time kind of giving both of our thoughts on the whole idea of pressure and what it means to be in that situation. Let's kind of shift into, okay, on the physical side, when you're working out, like we were at the beginning of the show, we were talking about, you were in the gym, you're in the gym in the morning, you work out, and then you go hit, and then you do your training and stuff like that. That's just your routine. That's what you have set up.
Right.
You obviously have physical benchmarks, right? When you're in the weight room, you know that when I get to this point, I'm feeling good. I'm locked in. I know that I'm ready.
Yeah.
Or, you know what? I really don't feel like, oh, my groin's a little tight, or my hamstring, or maybe I just don't feel like I'm ready. And for some reason, I just can't lift the weight. And so instead of getting down on yourself, maybe you adjust and you say, okay, I'm not feeling it today, but I'm going to do the best that I can for what I got. Right. So you've got benchmarks, you've got an idea of what it takes to be sound on the physical level. How do we measure that on the mental side?
Man, hey, that's a really good question. I think you brought up a really good point too, because it's funny, like when we're not in game-based situations, a lot of times we can simplify things like that. We can say, okay, let me take off a little bit of the weight, or let me concentrate on one specific part of my body. So I think that we need to apply that same thing to the field, or whatever, the ice, the court, whatever it may be. But as an athlete, we're able to do a good job of simplifying certain things like that. If we can say, maybe I'm in a pressure situation, bases loaded, less than 2 outs, whatever it may be, I know I need to drive the ball to the outfield or whatever. Um, trying to simplify, okay, let me get a good pitch first. Let me think about one thing to make it a little bit simpler for me, instead of, okay, let me drive in all these runs.
Right.
I think a lot of times we put the expectation on ourselves because we know we're capable of doing it.
Right.
But if we're able to simplify it a little bit and say, okay, let me get a good pitch, or let me put the barrel on the ball. Let me just look strong in there in the plate. So I think we have so much of a checklist outside of the field too. Like, let's bring that inside the field. Let's think about one little thing that we got to do sometimes in those situations. I think that helps. I think if you talk to a lot of athletes, and we both have talked to a lot of athletes, like simplifying the game is like one of the biggest things that helps athletes really perform in a certain situation. So I think it's important to nail it down. Think of maybe one thing. Sometimes we're overwhelmed in our mind, but if I think, okay, we breathe, think about one thing that we need to do, and not so, that way we don't have so much pressure to do all of it. Like there's 8 other players that come up behind you. So maybe if you're able to help in a little way, then another player can pick it up. So I think that's a great question, because we're able to do it so much like outside of our sport, and it's easy for us to know, okay, this feels good if I do this, if I take a little weight off, or if I do this exercise. I know this is where my benchmark is. This is what I'm capable of doing. When I make things simpler, I can do that. So I think we got to do the same thing when we're out there on the field.
I'm asking you a serious question right now. Do you feel a little bit of pressure because you got some background noise where you're at?
Yeah, I got some people over here.
Yeah, but here's the thing. No, but here's the thing. Like, I can tell that you are aware of it, but you're not breaking down what you're doing, right? You're focused on what you're doing. You have an idea of what needs to happen. I don't mind it. It's organic, man. We're here. We're not here for production. We're here to talk. We're getting comments, we're getting things like that. But
this is real.
You're in a pressure situation, and you're adjusting. And so I think, when you get in that pressure situation, you ever been in I know this is a rhetorical question, but I want you to answer it. Okay. You ever been in a situation where you're hitting and then you end up at second base and you don't know what happened?
Man, that happens more times than not.
And I love that. I love that feeling. And I'm going to tell you why I love that feeling, because you're just reacting and you're playing. You're not thinking, you're clearing your mind. You're doing what you need to do. And I think that is the key thing that separates those good players from the extraordinary players from the good players is that they're able
Yeah.
to separate that situation, right? You're able right now to separate whatever's going on in the background, whatever's going on in the other. You're not looking at me and then looking up over here and then looking up over here trying to figure out what's going on. You have acknowledged what's going on around you, and now you are choosing to stay focused on the situation at hand, and you're just letting your routine take over. You're letting your training and your preparation take over. So I think when we get into pressure situations, the intensity level of that pressure situation is really based on how much you're prepared for that situation. Because if you get up to the plate and you haven't studied that pitcher, right? If you're in the dugout
Right.
and you're a pinch hitter, like you're on the bench that day, and you know that you're coming up for a pinch hit, probably, manager says, hey, X, you got the day off, but we're ready for a pinch hit later in the day. And if you're sitting around in the dugout the whole game, just BSing with the teammates, clowning
Yeah.
around, joking around, you're not studying the pitcher, you're not staying focused, and you get up there and you fail, that's on you.
Yeah.
That's not, to me, that's not a pressure situation. That's your lack of preparation. It is a pressure situation, but I don't think the pressure is what got you. I think in a normal situation, you would have been able to handle that pressure. And I'm not trying to say that just because you're mentally prepared and mentally sound, you're going to go 4 for 4 every game. That's not the case
Right.
at all.
Right.
That is
Yeah.
never the case, right? What it means is that when you do get into a game and you go 0 for 4, you're so mentally prepared to say, you know what, that 0 for 4 is not going to affect tomorrow, right? I don't feel like I went 0 for 4 and okay, I'm sweating. Okay, next game I'm 0 for 4 again. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? That's not how we react to those situations. So I want to shift gears a little bit now. What can we do? Actually, there's a comment on Facebook from Tara Burke before I get to my question. Tara Burke asks, Xavier, what are some ways that you slowed down the game mentally?
Yeah. I think this is like the question of all questions when you have pressure, right? I think first and foremost, you have to breathe. Sometimes, like even when we're not necessarily on the field, or we're maybe even like we talked about weightlifting,
Mhm.
you have to breathe. Like you're literally able to slow down the game, and you can use your energy in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and when I breathe, I think back to those times when everything that I've done to prepare myself for that situation, all that sweat that goes into the off season, all the tears, the blood, all that work that you've put into it. It's almost like satisfying once you think about that. And then once you think about that, then you can say, okay, I've prepared myself for this situation. Obviously, another way to slow the game down we've talked about is just the mental preparation before we come up to the plate, before we go throw a pitch, whatever it may be. For what it's worth, I played with the Marlins in 2017, 2016 with Ichiro,
Mm-hmm.
and we're talking about somebody that literally locked in for every moment of the game until maybe his turn to pinch hit in the 7th or 8th inning. So for me, I got to firsthand like watch somebody who's played 20 something years professionally at high levels, Japan and MLB, and
Mm-hmm.
see the way that he went about his preparation. There was like not one moment where this guy was not locked in. So I saw it from the best. So for me, I was able to say, okay, I can at least do little things like him that help, prepare himself. When it came to certain situations, I saw himself getting loose, like expecting to get ready to go in the game. He may not have gone in the game at that certain time, but he was ready to make that, ready to go in, ready to perform. So for me, breathing, remembering what you've done in the past, all the work that you've put in, remembering that these are situations that you want to be in, remembering that you have confidence, knowing that you're the best out there. I think, whenever we're thinking about we're the best at something, that takes a lot of pressure off of us. We have to really believe that too. So I think those things are really important. Those things help slow down the game. And then also just kind of looking at the situation. Sometimes, we get locked in as a hitter, we get locked in on the pitcher and just thinking about what we have to do. But I think sometimes if we take a step back and kind of, okay, let me look around, look how much room there is in the outfield for me to get a hit. Look how much holes there are in the infield for me to get a hit. Like, I think that stuff slows the game down as well. So it's all those things. There's so many different things that go into it. But as an athlete, if you're able to just relax and kind of think about those things, I think that helps slow the game down.
Yeah, that's great. We're here on the Prospect Dugout Network, live on Instagram, live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, here with my boy Xavier Scruggs. And we're talking about pressure and success. And X, I'm gonna touch on Tara's question, because I wanna say something. But
Yeah.
after that, I'm gonna ask you for three points that we can use. And I say, amateur baseball player or parent
Right.
or
Right.
someone in business. What are three things that we can do that are going to help us deal with pressure kind of in the moment, not right at the moment, but like say we're getting ready
Yeah.
for a game? What are, some three things that we can, kind of key in on? So I'll get to that in a
Right.
second, but I wanted to touch on the question from Tara Burke, which was, what were some of the ways that you slowed down the game mentally? And
Mhm.
so for me, I've been in the high school game and the youth travel ball game for 10, 12 years now, right? And so
Yeah.
every time the player gets a little bit older and goes to the next level, the game speeds up. It just
Mhm.
happens. The better the players are, the bigger the players are, the more competitive the players are, the game speeds up. The game doesn't
Right.
change. It's just that the skill set gets better. The
Mhm.
time from home to first is faster. And now all of a sudden, instead of having 5 seconds to throw the ball to first base, you got 3.3 seconds to throw the ball to first base, right? So I
Mhm.
think slowing the game down mentally
Right.
is, I would try to do that before the game started. I wanted to get into a routine to make it feel like I've been there before, right? Because when you're
Mhm.
jumping from one level to the next, I don't care how good you are, you're going to feel that initial pressure because it's going to be a new environment and things are going to be different for you. You're going to be out of your comfort zone. So I feel like, personally for me, we talked about this a couple episodes ago, but routine. Like for me, I'm showing up at the ballpark at the same time. I'm eating the same thing. I'm getting dressed the same way. I'm going out at the same time, not because I think that it's superstitious, but I feel like that locks me in to where I need to be. And that gets me focused on, okay, I'm here to do this specific job, instead of, oh, I just show up whenever and I'm clowning around this and that. And all of a sudden I got to turn on. You cannot do that. And I actually,
Yeah.
uh, I heard somebody telling a story about the Last Dance, the Michael Jordan show, which was, he had an on and off switch, but he never turned it off. He just kept it on, right? It wasn't, okay, I'm gonna turn it on and then turn it off. It's, I'm on, I'm ready to go. So when you get to the
Yeah.
ballpark, if you're not locked in before, the game starts, that game's gonna speed up automatically, right? So I feel like
Absolutely.
being prepared is going to slow that game down for you mentally. You're going to be able to focus. So what I asked before that was three things that we could use as an amateur baseball player, college baseball player, someone that's, running a business or a manager at a store, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
What are three key elements, three key points that we can implement in the moment or at that specific time before it happens to help us deal with that pressure?
Yeah, yeah. I think one of them we definitely touched on, just controlling your breathing, understanding that if you're able to breathe the right way, you're going to slow down your heart rate. And though a lot of times when we're in the middle of the situation, our heart rate is just going crazy. I think another thing to do is understand our goal once we get in that situation. A lot of times we're thinking about so many distractions and the outside factors. I think it's important to understand that we usually have at least one goal that we want to do or want to accomplish. And then three, I think we have to simplify it. We talked about that too. Um, what is the simplest way for us to get that goal done? There may be multiple things to checklist, multiple things on that checklist for our goal, but let's narrow it down to one thing. For example, if I'm batting, I know there's a runner on second. I know that I need to get him over. If there's no outs, I need to get him over or drive him in. Okay, I know that my focus is going to be, I'm a right-handed batter. My focus is going to be driving the ball to right center, to that right side. How am I going to do that? One of the things I'm going to do is make sure I get a pitch middle away that's easier for me to drive.
Mhm.
So that's the one thing. I'm not even thinking about necessarily hitting the ball, how I'm going to hit the ball, where I'm going to hit it. Let me get a pitch that I know I can drive to the right side. So
Mhm.
that narrows it down for me at specific location.
Mhm.
If I'm an outfielder and I know that there's a runner on second, and first and foremost, I'm expecting the ball to get hit to me. What's my goal? My goal is to throw out the runner if I have opportunity to at home. And then how do I do that? How do I normally throw somebody out at home? Do I know my ball tails,
Right.
so I know I got to
Yeah.
aim it to a certain spot? Do I know that I have trouble sometimes picking up the ball when I'm coming through it? So like focus on one thing that's going to help you accomplish that goal.
Yeah, for sure.
Simplifying it like we talked about earlier.
For sure. So we're here on the Prospect Dugout Network. We're talking success and pressure. We just talked for about 30 minutes on pressure, different things with Xavier Scruggs, the X Factor with Xavier Scruggs. Dude, like, okay, so we got one question right here. I just pinned it on the Instagram live. If you want to go ahead,
Yeah.
it's how can players stay mentally focused with a clear head, right? If you want to touch on that, and then we're going to transition into success.
Yeah, yeah, and I think this is something that we talk about with extraordinary athletes a lot. If you guys are actually able to check out xoathletes.com, I have a virtual series on this talking about really focus, goal setting, those things that we can do to have a clear head.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that we do, like we talk about as athletes, like almost blocking out the noise. First, we have to understand that that's not easy a lot of the times. And I think we touched on how we can mentally do this, and it has to do with like we talked about being prepared,
Mm-hmm.
um, simplifying our goals, understanding that if we're able to make it just about, if I'm a hitter, if I'm able to make it just about me and the pitcher, or if I'm a pitcher, make it just about me and the hitter. Sometimes we get lost in like, oh man, what happens if so and so makes an error behind me when
Right.
I'm pitching, or what
Right.
happens if I hit the ball hard and it doesn't happen the outcome that I want. So really, just trying to hone in and almost have, I think I talked about this a little bit last week, but having that sharpshooter sense, like a lot of times when you're a sharpshooter, you're a sniper, you have to really hone in on one thing. Like there's going to be
Right.
distractions happening all the time, but you can't let that affect your shot. So making sure that I'm able to lock in on that one specific thing. And I think that that's going to help us provide a little more clear image of what we're trying to do.
Yeah. I think, for me, something that helps me stay mentally focused with a clear head. I think of, you had a busy day, right? And you're trying to go to sleep, and your brain is just like, literally, it's like a dog track. The dogs are just running around. They're not stopping. And you can't, for me, what I do in that situation is I try to close my eyes, and I try to not think about anything. I try to look with my eyes at the back of my eyelids and just see the black, right? And just focus on the darkness right there. So that way I'm actually focusing and thinking on one thing, but I'm using my eyesight, even though it's not, I mean, it's dark, but
Hmm.
for me, like when I get up to the plate and I'm feeling nervous, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to find a scuff mark or a label or something on my bat, and I'm going to look at it, and I'm going to breathe. I'm going to focus, right? And I'm going to get myself, if I can focus on that, and if I can use my power, my mental power to think about that one thing, it's going to
Right, right.
automatically clear out other distractions. It's going to
Yeah.
automatically stop me from thinking about. So I think if you can get yourself into a position where you feel yourself hearing this over here, thinking about what's going to happen if I don't get a hit, thinking about what's going to happen if the center fielder drops his ball, or if I throw this change up and the catcher doesn't block it. Instead of doing that, if we
Mhm.
focus on breathing, like you said, and one thing at a time, it's going to help us get rid of those outside voices. It's going to help us get rid of those external circumstances, because in the long run, they don't matter. If
Right.
if you don't throw the pitch correctly, you're not going to have a chance to see if your center fielder is going to catch the ball or not. Right? If you don't swing the bat, you're not going to know if you got a hit or not. Right? You've got to actually execute. So I think if we really focus on the task at hand, I mean, it sounds simple, but it's hard. It's really, really
Yeah.
hard, because you have to pinpoint it. There's a lot of effort that goes into it.
Absolutely. And that's what I talk about, focus. That's a whole nother discussion, is like, it's hard to pinpoint our focus, and that's something that we have to do as an athlete. And the better we are at that, the more we separate ourselves. And ultimately, that's what we want to do to get recognized, to gain those responsibilities of a great athlete.
For sure. So we're here on Prospect Dugout with Xavier Scruggs, the X Factor, talking about how we go from good Yeah, talking about how we go from good to extraordinary, right? So I like how we progressed through the talk about pressure, right? The talk about pressure, we got your rundown of the definition, and then we answered a question from Tara about slowing the game down mentally and just being able to,
Yeah, shout out to Tara. Thank you,
yeah, for
Tara.
sure. Great question. Yes. And then how to use our preparation, both physically and mentally, to get us to where we're at. So now let's jump into what do we define success? How do we define success? What is success? Is success going 3 for 3? Is success going up there after you've had a bad day the last day, and you get up and you're not feeling it, you're not feeling well, but
Yeah.
you lock in and you tell yourself, I'm here to do a job. I'm here because I've got a responsibility. People are counting on me, and I can't just go through the motions because at I might lose my job. Or if I show up and I just go through the motions and it doesn't get done properly, they're going to find somebody
Yeah.
else. If I get to the ballpark and I don't warm up and I don't do what I have to do, then they're going to find somebody else that wants to do it. Right. So what is
Right.
success?
Yeah, I think that's and one of the biggest things that I stress to young athletes is that success is different for everybody. Your success is not going to be the same as somebody else's success.
Mm-hmm.
So first and foremost, stop comparing yourself to somebody else's standards,
Mm-hmm.
because you only know your own true success.
Mm-hmm.
You only know your own true desired outcomes. That's the definition of success, is a desired outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but understanding that success is not usually just one point or one destination. A lot of times, okay, success, my goal for me as a professional athlete, get to the big leagues, right? But it doesn't stop after that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, we have to understand that success is a process, and it's an ongoing process. So for me and for athletes, amateur athletes, professional athletes, I think we have to understand, first of all, define your own success, whether those be goals, accomplishments that you want to get, whether that be a daily thing. And
Mm-hmm.
then when you're going through that process, don't look to somebody else's success or look to somebody else's failures and compare yourself. I think that
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the first mistakes that we make a lot of times. And as athletes, it's hard because we're always competing. We always
Mm-hmm.
have competition towards somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think the players that make it the furthest are able to concentrate on what they have to do so much more than seeing what everybody else is doing. And that doesn't mean necessarily being selfish as a player, but understanding, okay, this is actually going to help the team if I'm able to do these things.
Mm-hmm.
So I always tell players, don't define your success by somebody else's standards. Have your own standards of success, and understand that the desired outcome may not come every time you step on the field or every time that you go to perform. Understand that failure comes along with success. Um, and that the best people, or the best athletes, the best businessmen, they fail along the way to their success or their desired outcome. And they do that all the time. So understanding that failure helps us learn is a part of success. Um, but I think for me, first understanding as an athlete that your success is not the same as somebody else's,
Right.
and don't hold yourself accountable, and don't expect less of yourself. Sometimes we see somebody else's success and we say, okay, I can do that. And then we think that that's success, but we can actually do more a lot of the time. So don't hold yourself back.
Mm-hmm.
And parents, your success is not the same as your athlete, your child's success. So understand, don't put unrealistic expectations on them. I think a lot of times as parents,
Yeah.
we have like these parent goggles sometimes
Mm-hmm.
we put on, and we expect so much more out of our kid because we know they're capable of doing it. But at the same time, we have to sometimes take those goggles off, remember that they are a kid, and remember that they're out there having fun. They're always trying their best. They're not going to put forth the effort. They're not going to put forth mediocre effort. Like, they're going to go forward and they're going to do what they need to do. So for our parents out there, don't expect your success to be your child's success as well.
For sure. So I'm just trying to rack my brain about how we're going to lead this success conversation, because it's really difficult. But I want to know, how do you define success? So let's use a specific example. Okay.
Yeah.
you get up, you said you get up and you start training at 6 o'clock in the weight room, right? What's a successful day at the weight room look like for you?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question because I could easily say, okay, success is me putting up all this weight. Maybe I have a goal of benching 315, whatever it may be. But success can be knowing that, okay, my body didn't have it today. Understanding mentally how your body feels. Same thing on the field. Understanding, okay, maybe success may not be, I may not feel the best at the plate, but maybe if I'm able to help out the team in a certain way by maybe stealing a base or defensively playing right. But that's kind of like later on down the line. But so you're asking me about basically strength training, conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that a goal of mine may be to come out of there being a little bit faster on the treadmill, maybe hitting a certain point. But understanding that if I didn't have the right form that day,
Mm-hmm.
that's not success. Maybe I hit that point, but I lost my
Right.
form and lost my focus. So eventually, that's not going to help me in the long
Right.
run. But if I know if I'm able to concentrate, it's almost like we're talking about preparation, like being able to concentrate on one specific thing
Yeah.
that's going to help me take a step forward.
Yeah.
Understanding that success doesn't, I'm not going to jump in. If I haven't been lifting anywhere near 300 bench pressing, all of a sudden jumping in and saying, okay, so-and-so lift 315, I need to
Yeah.
get there. That's not going to happen in a day.
Yeah.
Right. So I think our success is understanding the process of getting better every day.
Yeah.
For me, you asked specifically about me, understanding that I'm getting better at something maybe small every single day in the weight room on the field, because I think it's easy for us to like shoot for the moon.
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of the times we don't understand how to get there. But if we're able
Right.
to shoot for the moon and say, okay, let me take a step every day, then that makes it easier.
Yeah, for sure. So I think for me, well, we're here on the X Factor with Xavier Scruggs. I just want to keep mentioning that just so people that are watching, you guys know what we're here doing. It's a weekly show and we dive into a couple topics. We answer questions from Instagram Live, from Facebook Live, from YouTube Live. We answer questions about the mental side of the game. And so today we're talking about pressure and we're talking about success. Uh, Xavier Scruggs played 3 seasons in Major League Baseball. He's a professional free agent now. He's staying in shape. He's getting up in the morning, working out, training. Website is xoathletes.com. He's got a lot of virtual training. He's doing a lot of good things for athletes, for business people, for parents. If you love the game of baseball, if you don't love the game of baseball, but you want to be a better human being, xoathletes.com has got some resources for you. So for me, I want to touch on that question that I asked you. How do you define success personally in the weight room? For me, what I define as success in the weight room is I want to make sure that the person or the other people that I can compare myself to, strength wise or conditioning wise or whatever, if I keep up with them, if I'm working with them and I'm pushing myself to be the best that I can, for me that's successful. I don't necessarily have to beat them, but like there's one person that in my CrossFit class that is always moving and moving and moving. I'm always trying to say, okay, I want to catch up. I want to be on the same pace. I want to be on the same pace. And even though I'm not winning, it's not a competition to me, and I'm not beating the time, but I feel like I'm pushing myself. So to me, it may not be a success in terms of the weight that I lift or the amount of reps that I do or the time that it takes. But to me, I'm successful because I locked in mentally and I said, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm going to try to do. And if I improve my time, and even if I don't improve my time, but if I put in the 100% effort and I feel like I gave it my all and I came out, what I plan to do, then that's a success for me. So you're right. It's all based on the individual person, the individual athlete, right? But it doesn't have to be a super broad goal. It can be something that's simple. So I pinned this comment on Instagram by jhooks5. He said, how do you stay confident after you make an error, or just in general, or how do you keep it out of your head that you won't mess up? And I think we can use the success talk for that. And I'll kind of touch on it first, but I'll let you reply. But I think for me, how do you stay confident after you make an error? Well, let's break it down. Okay, I made an error. Okay, that's fine. It's going to happen. First of all, you got to tell yourself that you're never going to go a whole season without making an error. Boom, done deal. It's done. That's it. That pressure is gone. I already know that errors are going to happen. I already know that if I strike out 7 times out of 10 times and get a hit 3 times, I'm a really good baseball player, right? So I think understanding the situation that you're in and knowing that you're putting in the work, right? Jay Hooks, you said, how do you stay confident after you make an error? Well, the confidence doesn't come from that moment. The confidence comes from the work that you're putting in, right? You can't go into a baseball game and sit there at second base and worry about your mechanics, worry about your fundamentals, worry about anything. You have to go and play. You have to rely on the training. You have to rely on the work and the time that you've put in to get yourself to a position where you can be successful. And so I think in that situation, J Hooks _5, I think what you have to do is I think you have to break it down and say, okay, what is success in that situation? Is success bouncing back and saying, okay, I'm ready to go? Then all of a sudden you're confident because you're keeping your mind focused on the game. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think that you're right on with that. I think that that's perfect. I'm glad Jay Hook asked that question, because I think a lot of athletes need to understand that, like you said, it's going to happen. You know, it happens to the best of them. I had a podcast with Colton Wong. He talked to me about being thrown out in making the last out of the World Series, like being thrown out maybe because his lead was a little bit too much at first base. So what he told me was like how he responded from that. So I think it's important for athletes to remember, once you make an error, once you make a mistake, like understand, like what makes you better is how you respond from that situation. Right. So understanding those mistakes are going to happen even at the highest level on the highest stage. So thank you, Colton Wong, for reminding me of that. But just knowing that those things happen, and you want to respond like an extraordinary athlete. Also, I wrote down too, is that you didn't lose your skills all of a sudden, like once you made that error. Like it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to happen away again. No, you're still the same great player. So remind yourself of that. Remind yourself that, like, hey, there's going to be more coming toward me. I've made this play in the past. I'm excited to make it again. I'm excited to be out here. Remind yourself of why you're there and why you're in that position. Because obviously somebody else thinks you're responsible enough to do that job. Keep taking it upon yourself and understand, like you said, it's going to happen. So the faster we get over that and able to respond to the next play, which is easier said than done. We got coaches all the time, hey, get the next one. But it starts mentally. Okay, how do I get the next one? Be prepared. Understand that you're in that position for a reason. And you got to flush it. We talk about flushing those situations. Like, understand that it didn't kill you. You're still out there. So, keep battling.
And I think that you can use that failure to drive you and say, okay, I failed, but I'm still here. Right. I failed, but I'm going to come back and I'm going to bounce back. I think that if we can take, there's two different, I was just talking with somebody today. So my son played a game this morning, 8 a.m. over here. I'm on the East Coast of Florida. I'm traveling and we're doing a remote live show today. I'm in an Airbnb. I got a nice little background. But anyway, so I was talking with somebody this morning, and we were just talking about like composure. We were talking about just like competitiveness and things like that. Dude, I love this. This is awesome. The background noise is great because we're battling. We're like, I want it to be quiet, but it's like, it doesn't matter because we're here. We're having a good time talking with Xavier Scruggs. My dude spent 3 years in the big leagues, professional free agent, the X factor with Xavier Scruggs. But I think that, we were talking about confidence. We were talking about composure and things like that. And so I think that there's a difference between there's two different, in my mind, there's two different types of travel ball baseball player. Right? There's the one that wins all the time, and when they lose, they don't know how to handle themselves. And then there's the one that has learned what failure is, has learned what, okay, so let me take that back. There's 3 times, okay? 3 kinds. The one that wins all the time, and when they fail, they don't know how to take the failure. They don't know how to take the loss, right? They win all the championships, but then they lose, they freak out, they cry, they throw stuff. Then there's the one that is understanding of losing. They've lost, but they've won some, but they've lost kind of the same that they've won. And so they understand that just because I failed doesn't mean that I can't win. And then there's the third person that has lost a few times and they just give up. They're like, I can never win. Right. So I think that, man, being able to embrace the failure and use that to strengthen that mental side and say, you know what, failure is a part of the game. I feel like when you get to the point where you're asking yourself a question about how you stay confident after failing, you've got to understand that you're not playing one game. Your career is not based off of one game. And if you can't separate yourself from that one game, how can you be successful? If you go and you go on a business call, or you go to a meeting, or you go to a proposal or a pitch, or you go to whatever it may be, and it doesn't work out, that's not the end of the road. That just means I can't remember, was it Einstein that said I may have failed 1,000 times, but I just found 1,000 ways it didn't work. So it's like, how do you look at that failure? If you are failing because you weren't prepared and because you didn't get yourself set up, or because you were in the wrong position, and you do that again, you're not learning from failure, right? You're not helping yourself. So you're attributing the lack of success to failure, when in reality, the failure has nothing to do with it. The failure is just a bump in the road. The failure is just something. It's think of it like a dart that's coming at you, trying to knock you down, and you just got to let it bounce off of you. Almost like wearing a shield in Halo, right? Where you absorb it and you just keep going, you keep rolling. And then as you get better mentally, when that same failure comes, it's as if that failure doesn't even exist, because in your mind's eye, you've already understood that has no effect on your future. It has no effect on what's going on, only if you let it, right? I got a question right here. Can you have X talk about his take on this year's shorter draft and guys signing $20,000 free agent contracts? So let me rephrase that question for you, right? So you've got guys that have spent their entire life striving to get drafted or striving to get the professional level, and they feel like they missed out on this. So their definition of success was, maybe going through high school and getting drafted, but they didn't. How can you answer that question in terms of that when we're talking about success now?
Yeah, I think that first and foremost, if you understand that you have a certain goal, you're not going to let one person or teams tell you that your goal is not happening right now. You're able to keep moving forward. For me, I've kind of touched on this in multiple kind of avenues, talking about the minor leaguers as well as the young players that didn't get the same draft opportunities as a lot of guys. I think you have to understand first and foremost, this doesn't mean that it's just over. If you didn't get drafted, and also if you didn't sign as a free agent, it doesn't mean it's over. There's plenty of avenues: independent ball, Mexico, the Dominican winter leagues, Venezuelan winter leagues, like so many other avenues, Korea, Japan. These things happen all the time. Secondly, understanding that, once again, you can't compare your journey to somebody else's. If you know that you can make it to the big leagues and that you're a big league caliber player, you just have to keep going. Your journey is not going to be the same as somebody else's. But I had 7 years in the minor leagues. There was multiple times when I was like questioning myself, questioning God, like questioning everything. Like, hey man, what is going on? Like, is this not for me? But for me, it was to understand, okay, I'm not the same as a first rounder who's going to make it there maybe in 2 or 3 years, or maybe the first year. Like, no, I'm going to have a certain journey, and I'm going to have to get to where I need to be, and I'm going to keep driving no matter what. So unfortunately, it does suck. I understand that. That's horrible for those players. But at the same time, it's not over. I don't like it one bit because I think that a lot of guys get drafted, and the Cardinals organization is huge with this. There's a lot of guys drafted after those first 5 rounds that make it to the big leagues because they're so good with their farm system and developing players. So I think a lot of players get developed later, and you get those late blooming players. So it sucks for players, but at the same time, it's out of your control. Now you can only control what you can control. Go get better. Find another avenue. If you really want it, you'll find a way.
I'm muted. Sorry. We're talking about rookie move. We're talking about pressure and we're talking about success, the X factor with Xavier Scruggs. And there's a question right here. We're going to wrap it up. We're going to wrap it up with this last question. And I'm going to, it's in the Instagram comments, and we're going to wrap it up here, but I'm going to kind of rephrase it. What are your goals for the day? So I want to rephrase that to say, give me one thing that we can use to define as success, using that, like, what are your goals for the day? I'm going, what can I use to say I had a successful day?
Yeah, I think for me, I think you touched upon it earlier, is, and I think we both touched upon it, is finding a way to get better every single day at whatever our craft may be. If that's going to weights and conditioning, finding a way to get better than the day before. And I don't count it failure necessarily as if we didn't. If we stay the same, okay, it's understandable. It's a process. Sometimes we might take a step back, but success is actually, for me, getting better at something I've been working on. Whether that be mobility, sometimes flexibility. If I can go a little bit further flexible wise, or a little bit further mobility wise. Same thing, batting. If I know I'm trying to drive the ball to the back of the cage 10 out of 10, maybe yesterday I did it 7 times. If I'm able to do it 8 times today, that's a little bit better. That's success. So just making it just a little bit better every day, is going to be so huge for us in the long run, because it takes a while. You hear it's like some of the best businessmen saying, like, I had my overnight success in 40 years or something like that, so it takes a while a lot of the times. And then you ultimately get to where you want to be as long as you keep working at it.
That's cool, dude. So today we talked about pressure and success on the X factor with Xavier Scruggs. And I think we had a success today because you had some kind of party going on in the background. You know what we did? We stayed focused and we rolled through this thing, man. We did an hour and 20 minutes, hour and 14 minutes of the X factor with Xavier Scruggs. So I think, we felt the pressure of whatever was going on, but we came out. It's 2:29. We're wrapping it up right now. The X Factor with Xavier Scruggs. Dude, we had a successful day today. I appreciate your time, man. I look forward to next Tuesday coming right back here. I'm looking forward to what the topics are, man. I can't wait. Thank you so much, Xavier. Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Drop a comment, drop a share, drop a like, whatever it is. Come back. See us next week on Tuesday right here. I'm your host, Joel Hartman, for Xavier Scruggs. We'll see you later. Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon.